good morning. It is the first day of February. Already a month has gone by in this new year of 2023. Good morning. And I am Dr. Tony Rail Sutherland, if you didn't already know that. Todd is out today, but he will be back. I am here with our guest co-host, Marisa Benitez, HCC Southeast Interim Advising Manager of Student Services, who share with us just a moment. Tell us a little bit about how everybody can find us.
Yes, good morning, Dr. Tony. This beautiful, cold and gloomy day. But let me share a little bit how you guys can find us every day. So we're live on Houston Community College District Facebook page, not HCC, and on YouTube. We're also on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and on HCCTV at noon, 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Great. Now, the Rose Bowl was last month, and some of us saw that. It was very neat. I love the roses. But everything is still coming up roses for one of HCC's faculty members who was a big winner at its parade, Mary Louise. Hi, Mary. How are you doing?
Hi, everybody. I'm good.
She's a government faculty at HCC Northeast and a writer on the Donate for Life float in the Rose Bowl. So that must have been a lot of fun. We'll talk to you a little bit about that a little later, okay? But first, another HCC faculty member has written a book about his stepfather, a missing Vietnam vet, Dr. Robert Lunday. Welcome to the show, Dr. Lunday.
Thank you very much.
You know, we're looking forward to discussing this thought-provoking book. But first, tell us what you mean when you call it a hybrid memoir. What is that?
It's a kind of memoir or focused autobiography that has been more common in recent years. That is a combination usually of the author's personal story with some broader sense of context to that story that might come out of culture, history, technology, whatever the intersections are. It's highly variable, but it's a way of just deepening the story itself of the individual out into the culture or history that's a part of.
No, the book is about missing persons. Now, there's all kind of movies, TV shows, books, etc., that all cover the phenomenon, you might call it, of missing persons or disappearance of people. How does your book delve into that cultural phenomenon?
One thing that my family experienced 40 years ago when this happened to us, when my stepfather disappeared, that was before the internet era, we had the feeling at the time that we were the only people to whom this kind of thing had happened, which of course wasn't true. One thing that's happened in the digital era is that you can more easily connect through the internet, social media, and other experiences to other people who've had that experience. And so in researching and writing my own story, it became a hybrid memoir by my finding out what the patterns of disappearance were in the society and globally in the world overall, and just connecting, again, finding the intersections between how and why people disappear or get disappeared and other aspects of society, the war and veterans who've experienced war and therefore have a higher level of risk for certain kinds of things, or drug smuggling or trafficking, or civil wars. They all connect and intersect back into what, down to the level of the individual family, will be what happened to my husband, what happened to my father.
It's a different kind of feeling than when someone dies, when you know that someone has died. When some person is missing, how do you know how to feel? I mean, you know what I mean? Not that you know how to feel, but...
That's something that has been studied in recent years. For example, a researcher named Pauline Boss has written works about what she calls ambiguous loss. And she has related this to people who experience the loss of someone in a disaster like 9/11, which she has studied, missing persons in the general sense, enforced disappearances. And she studies the psychology of the left behind, you could call them, those who have not gone missing, but a loved one has, and relates it to the grief we feel already complex enough when somebody has died. And there's also an Australian woman working from Dr. Boss's research who looks at more precisely at the idea of hope. And she defines it as having two streams, that in the short term, you might hope for a return, finding at least the fate of someone who's gone missing. But in the long run, you try to turn that in toward the left behind. How do we have hope for ourselves? So it's not so much finding closure, which sometimes people specifically don't want. They want to keep the notion as the years go by that, well, that person might be there, but they have to have their own lives, a sense that their own lives will go on.
They have to still keep going, but they still want that hope.
Right.
That light.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's to me, I think it's more difficult to have a missing person in your life than someone that you know has passed away, because it's finite. I mean, it's sad, it's horrible, it's grief, but it is a different kind of a grief.
Well, you have when someone's missing and you don't know their fate, you have doubts about yourself, about them, who they really were, but also what forces, entities might have caused the disappearance. And so it can be almost a kind of paranoia. And then it's something that it's a small percentage of people reported missing. Only 2 to 3% of missing persons, as reported in the initial hours or days, actually stay missing beyond 2 months. But if you're part of that 2 or 3%, then it goes on for years, maybe your entire life. And so you have to learn how to live with it.
Now, your book talks about being a military brat. How is that so?
That's one of the intersections. And the meaningfulness of it partly is because growing up in the military, you kind of go missing every year or two, in a sense, because you move around the world. But also in terms of the military person, the service person who's gone to combat. The combat veteran experiences something that can be hard to understand for other people who haven't gone through that kind of experience. For both my father, who was also a soldier, and my stepfather, when they came back from war, they seemed to have a desire to stay on the edge. And that created in both of them this tendency to enter into risky situations. Now, I don't know if that's why my stepfather disappeared, but it's part of what we suspect, that he got into something because he had to maintain that risk. And so if you grow up in that kind of family, you have the nomadism, the transience, but you also have the sense that person, in my growing up, it was usually the father, that he's somebody you can't quite understand because he's had this experience that puts him apart in a way. So he's already not there, even when he's literally there.
And, talking about the Vietnam War, there were so many tragedies and stories and all kinds of things that happened with that and the aftermath of it. Tell us a little bit about how you relate that in your book.
Part of one thing when I'm teaching my students about writing in war is you look at your own experience, and it's like being on the ground and you can see only what's nearby. So part of what we have to do rhetorically in the writing of the essay is pretend that we're sort of rising up, going up in an elevator to see the broader landscape. And so I look at my father's experience, my family's experience, and then I kind of rise up and I look at that communal, social, and historical context as if from a higher altitude to find the patterns of meaning. And what I teach my students when they're relating their own stories, when it might be about immigration or about abuse or other challenges, you rise up, you see, first of all, you're not alone, and that's empowering. Other people have had similar experiences, but also you start to see the patterns of that experience, that challenge at the social and historical levels. And that too is empowering. to have that sense that it seems disordered, it seems unpredictable, but really the patterns allow us to see the possibility of order.
We have less than a minute left, but tell us a little bit. You're a professor of English, you teach composition. Tell us a little bit about your courses.
I teach composition and creative writing and literature. And one thing I've tried to do that has been, I think, very helpful is to seek out the intersections between my life as a writer and my life as a teacher, to help my students see the possibilities of thinking of themselves as professionals, as writers. They're not just guests in my world. They're part of it. We're collaborating. And that's very exciting, because then I end up learning a lot from them, at least as much as they might learn from me. And that has made the job continually exciting for me and challenging.
Writing is a beautiful way of expressing yourself and letting out feelings and therapy and all those wonderful things. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dr. Lundavid. That was wonderful. I could sit here and talk to you and ask you 1,000 questions, but they won't let me do that. So I'm going to move on. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you, Tony. I appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Oh, okay. Now let's go to Marissa. Marissa, you have someone you're going to talk to. Tell us, introduce her to us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Tony. We're going to be moving on to Mary Louise, the government faculty at HCC Northeast and a writer at the Donate for Life float in the Rose Bowl Parade. Welcome back to the show, Mary, and congratulations. What an honor. HCC spotlighted you and your cancer journey before to encourage mammograms. Is that one of the reasons why you were selected to ride in the parade?
Yes, it was just an experience of a lifetime, and I was selected because I'm a tissue recipient, and it was about the float was the Donate Life float in the Rose Bowl Parade, and it was about lifting each other up, and also that I was represented. I was supported by the American Association of Tissue Banks and MTF Biologics. And what it was just highlighting tissue donation as well as organ donation.
That's amazing. What an experience. And talk about that experience. I can already imagine the emotions of seeing the women and men surrounding you and then seeing all these people. So talk about it a little bit with me, please.
Well, it's something to see on television. You always see it and to just, what time of the year, but to actually be there and to be a part of it. It was, when we got there, we got to work on the floats. And something that I didn't understand is that when we got to put the flowers and the roses on the floats, you got to actually experience reading all of the dedications that people had. And each one is read. And you would go through there and you would just be very emotional because you would read the dedications that people would have for their families, whether it's donors or recipients. And, it was just an amazing experience because there was so much support, so much just amazing experience with other people that have been recipients as well as donors. And that's one of the things that sometimes you feel you're going through something and you're just by yourself, but just riding on that float with other people. And I am a tissue recipient, but I got to see it to be with donor recipients. And then I started to feel that maybe mine wasn't, as significant as theirs. And then I was told that whereas somebody had a heart transplant, liver transplant, kidney transplants, the everyday transplants is those tissue donations that are given and people receive.
That's amazing. That's great to hear. My heart is full of joy listening to you share that experience with me. And you mentioned briefly about the significance. And I know the other writers share a similar journey. And like you said, some of them are more extensive, more in a different caliber than your journey. Can you share a couple of stories that you heard of the other writers on the floats?
Well, I'm learning how to be calmer, because what happens is that I got all of these messages that said, "You're so lucky to be on the float," and I had to remind people that on the dragon's tail, you had donors, and there were fluorographs because people had passed. the riders on the float are recipients, and the ones that were walking along the float, they were donors. So I stood between a double kidney recipient, Leva, and then I also sat beside another kidney recipient. And along the walk, his sister had donated a kidney to him. And we had heart transplants on there. And just to know that the struggle that people had to be on the float, you had people that were ill just the night before, but made sure that they left the hospital at 2 a.m. just to ride on the float. It was just an amazing experience. There was we also keep in touch. But there's a young boy on there, Xavier, and Xavier, he got a transplant when he was really, really young. And he just made you laugh the entire time. So I check in on him as well to check and see how he's doing. But a kidney transplant when you're really young, if you're older and you get your recipient of something, you kind of understand. But when they're really young, going through that for their lifetime, it was just incredible.
That's amazing. And and I think about it because sometimes I don't want to say maybe take advantage that we're standing here living and breathing, and you don't realize that maybe the person standing next to you maybe struggling to breathe, or maybe struggling, or like how you said, they had to wake up early from the hospital just to be there, and really accepting and realizing that, there's people out there in situations that, they need love, just like how every single one of us need love and hugs. I'm a big hugger, so I'm, come here, I give you a hug, So when you experience those things, I can already imagine everybody's emotions running together. That's just amazing, I wish I could give you a hug through the camera, right?
It's a greater appreciation of life, and just the thought that we had a yearbook where people would give you their sticker. There's a sticker that you put on the book, and you would exchange stickers. And I had this young lady, she ran up to me and she says, "Can I have your sticker?" I said, "Sure. So what is your story?" And her younger brother had died last year in a car accident. And he provided donor tissue and organs to other people. And you're trying not to cry. And you know what happens? I'm not generally a hugger, anybody that knows me, but I was a hugger during this weekend because I don't know how to express to you how important tissue and organ donations are to people, or the fact I hate to go on and on, but we won the sweepstakes. I mean, and you should have seen the tears and the happiness because it was an amazing float. It was an amazing message about lifting other people up, lifting each other up, and we won sweepstakes. It was amazing.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Let me see. You also won the sweepstakes, right? So how did you feel? I know you said that was an amazing feeling, but how was it, like all the emotions? Was it at the end of the parade where they figured out that you won?
No, the day before, we got all dressed up and we had to present for the judges the way that we would be in the actual float. I'm not sure if I'm telling any trade secrets, but we had to do it the day before. And you're really you had to sit on the float, just stand there for a long period of time while the judges went through each of the floats. And so in the morning when we got all dressed, just up in our outfits, ready to go on the float, it was really early in the morning. And another thing is that I didn't realize with tissue donation and organ donation, you take a lot of medication because everybody had to take their medication, and you were waiting. And they said, "We have, just gather around. We have something to tell you." And I'm like, what? And it turned out that we won sweepstakes, and it was just really amazing. And the other floats, they were really excited for us as well.
That's great. Congratulations. I can't even say the amount of times I can say congratulations in an interview with you, Mrs. Louis. But what would you remember the most about being a writer on the Donate Life Floats?
Not only just the cause, because I actually think that I will just spend so much time just trying to make people realize how important organ and tissue donation is, but also the fact that it's the people that you meet. Sometimes we feel that we are alone in something. And I would always tell, people tell me, I'm like, you just don't understand. But everyone on that float understood what it was like. And it makes you also understand that other people are going through something far greater than what you're going through. And not to discount anything, but I had to be told, I was like, okay, when you're looking at somebody with a heart transplant, maybe my tissue is not as big, issue. But when a heart transplant or a lung transplant recipient is giving you a hug and saying, no, you are the everyday person. So I think it's just taking time to realize that sometimes it is about something that's greater than us, and we all need something, and tissue donation is a part of everything, whether it's jaw reconstruction or something that we have, and it's something that we might come into contact with.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, and thank you for your message. I think everybody needs to hear that and needs to know what's going on outside of HCC and into the rest of the world. But thank you so much, Mrs. Mary Louise, again, government faculty at HCC Northeast, and a representative for Donate for Life Float in the Rose Bowl Parade. We'll have your info after the show. Thank you, Ms. Louise.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful, great news. And I love the Rose Bowl, and that must have been a lot of fun. Well, let's go to our news and events. This, of course, is the beginning of Black History Month, and we have a Black History Trivia kickoff. And it is today, February 1st. It's from 6 to 7 p.m. So you can, if you answer the questions right, you get a chance to win e-gift cards. So that would be wonderful. What else we got, Marisa?
Yes, so on February 15th from noon to 1, that's a Wednesday on Zoom, we'll have a free event on the Intro to Bookkeeping from MBDA. That was a tongue twister. And that webinar, you'll learn the importance of good bookkeeping practices and the overall financial health of your business from the MBDA's Pandemic Recovery Center.
It's hard to say sometimes. Well, we've been talking about writing, and creative writing is wonderful. We have a creative writing club. So HCC students with an interest in it or any medium can consider this outlet for their expression. The Creative Writing Club hosts such events as open mics, readings, visiting writers, and is a safe place for all to belong in order to support, nurture, and showcase student talent. And we will have information in that in our post after the show.
Yes, and how would it be awesome to go to Greece? I mean, we have one faculty member, Katherine Fields, who actually is going to have an exhibition on April 6th at HCC Central at their Fine Arts Gallery. In her exhibition, she's going to be displaying work from her summer 2022 sabbatical in Greece and the techniques created as a result of her residency and travels through Athens, Delphi, and Crete. That's next on my checklist. So maybe I'll be there in 2023. It's going to happen, correction, from February through April 6th.
It is wonderful. I've not personally been to Greece. I've been close, but not quite there. But I've also seen some of Katherine's work, and it's absolutely wonderful. I can't wait to talk to her about that later. HCC Southwest students are invited to join the Black Life Studies Club, another club at the Stafford campus. The calendar of events for Black History Month offers something for every day of the month, including movies every Thursday. Now that sounds great. For more info, the advisor is Michael Ayers, and we'll have information about that in our post after the show.
I'll be there if there's popcorn. I'm just kidding. I'll make sure I'm there. I'm going to definitely got to make a trip out there to Southwest and kind of stop in and see one of the movies that is being offered. I think Hidden Figures is one of them that's being promoted on one of the Thursday events. So I'm thinking about heading out that way. And I do want to mention that spring second start registration opens next week. Mrs. Tony, you want to go and speak on that?
Oh, yes. This is very important. Yes, spring semester is already started, but second start is about to. And so you still have a chance to register. So please do that. You can enroll online anytime. That means you're online all the time. You don't have to go in face to face. You can have online on a schedule where you still don't have to go in, but you meet on a schedule on Zoom or Teams or whatever platform that the instructor tells you about. Then there's hybrid. I teach a hybrid. Hybrid means you do both. You meet face to face a specific time of the week or however many times of the week. And then also the other half of that class is online. So that's fun. To me, hybrid is the most fun. A lot of people like that. It's kind of the best of both worlds. Then, of course, there's in person or face to face, the normal, traditional way. And then there's the hybrid lab. That means you go to class or online, but then you go physically to the lab, because a lot of labs, it really helps if you're hands-on with that. So don't forget to register. Go to hccs.edu/apply and register today. Now, coming up, we're going to, of course, launch Black History Month with a visit to Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. How wonderful. I can't wait for that. Unfortunately, somebody else is going to be interviewing, but that's okay. I can watch. This place was, of course, made famous as the location where President Abraham Lincoln of the Emancipation Proclamation was assassinated. We're also going to have some other things. What, Marisa?
The campus advisor for the Black Lives Student Club at HCC Stafford campus. They'll be discussing those events that we discussed earlier that has been lined up for Black History Month. And again, this month is going to be full of events in all campuses. So we've only highlighted just a few. So we look forward to seeing everybody there.
Oh yeah, Black History Month is full of stuff. And it's not just, well, I guess it is. It started actually in February and ends in January and ends in February, but it's a wonderful time. You learn so much history and other new things happening. I truly enjoy it. So thank you, Marisa, for being with us today. And thank you out there for being with us. We really appreciate it. We're here every morning, Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock. So always be sure and join us, or you can watch a recorded show later on, anytime you want online. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dr. Tony Rayos Sutherland, and we will see you next time on Up to the Minute.